Section 8 of Advice to Young Men and Boys. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Advice to Young Men and Boys by B Comegys. Our Constitution, October 1887. I am about to do what I have never done, what has probably never been done by any other person in this chapel. I propose to give you a political speech, but not a partisan speech. Indeed, I hardly think you will be able to guess from anything I say to which of the two great political parties I belong. I do not go to the Bible for a text, though there are many passages in the Holy Scriptures which would answer my purpose very well. But I take for my text the following passage from the will of Mr. Girard. And especially I desire that by every proper means a pure attachment to our republican institutions and to the sacred rights of conscience as guaranteed by our happy constitutions shall be formed and fostered in the minds of the scholars. A few weeks ago, our city was filled to overflowing with strangers. They came from all parts of the land, and some from distant parts of the world. Our railways and steamboats were crowded to their utmost capacity. Our streets were thronged, our hotels and many private dwellings were full. It was said that there were 500,000 of strangers here. The President of the United States, the members of the Cabinet, many members of the National Senate and House of Representatives, the General of the Army and many other generals, the highest Navy officers, judges of the Supreme Court of the United States and of the state courts, the governors of most of the states, each with his staff, soldiers and sailors of the United States, and many regiments of state troops, the Girard College cadets among them, a military and naval display of 25,000 men, representatives of foreign states, an exhibition of the industrial and mechanic arts, in a procession miles in extent, such as was never seen in all the world before, receptions and banquets, public and private, a general suspension of most kinds of business. All this occurred in the streets of our city only a few weeks ago. What did it mean? It was the 100th anniversary of the adoption of the Constitution of the United States, and it was considered to be an event of such importance that it was well worth while to pause in our daily work, to give holiday to our schools, to still the busy hum of industry, to stop the wheels of commerce, to close our places of business. 100 years ago, the Constitution of the United States of America was adopted in this city. What had been our government before this time? Up to July 1776, there had been 13 colonies, all under the government of Great Britain. In the lapse of time, the people of these colonies, owing allegiance to the King of England and subjected to certain taxes which they had no voice in considering and imposing because they had no representation in the Parliament which laid the taxes, became discontented and rebellious, and in a convention which sat in our own city of Philadelphia, on the 4th of July, 1776, they united in a Declaration of Independence of Great Britain, and announced the 13 colonies as free, sovereign, and independent states. This, however, was only a declaration, and it took 7 long years of exhausting and terrible war, which would have been longer still but for the timely aid of the French nation, to secure that independence and have it acknowledged by the governments of Europe. Before the Declaration, each of the colonies had a state government and a written constitution for the regulation of its internal affairs. Now these colonies had become states, with the necessity upon them, not at first admitted by all, of a general compact or agreement by which the states, while maintaining their independence in many things, should become a confederated or general government. More than a year passed before the Constitution, which the Convention agreed upon, was adopted by a sufficient number of states to make it binding on all 13, and I am glad to know and to say that my own little state of Delaware was the first to adopt it. Now, what is the Constitution? How does it differ from the laws which the Congress enacts every winter in Washington? First, let me speak of other nations. There are two kinds of government in the world, monarchical and republican. And there are two kinds of monarchies, absolute and limited. An absolute monarch, whether he be called emperor or king, rules by his personal will. His will is the law. One of the most perfect illustrations of absolute or personal government is seen on board any ship, where the will of the chief officer, whether admiral or captain or whatever his rank, is and must be the law. From his orders, his decisions, there is no appeal until the ship reaches the shore, when he himself comes under the law. This is a very ancient form of government, now known in very few countries calling themselves civilized. The other kind of monarchy is limited by a constitution, unwritten as in Great Britain, or written as in some other nations of Europe. In these countries, the sovereigns are under a constitution, in some instances with hardly as much power as our president. They are not a law unto themselves, but are under the common law. The other kind of government is republican, democratic, or representative. It is, as was happily said on the field of Gettysburg long after the battle by President Lincoln, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. These few plain words are well worth remembering: of, by, for the people. These are the traits which distinguish our government from all kinds of monarchies, whether absolute or limited, hereditary or elective. After the war between Germany and France, in 1870, the German kingdoms of Prussia, Hanover, Saxony, Württemberg, Bavaria, with certain small principalities, each with its hereditary sovereign, were consolidated or confederated as the German Empire, and the King of Prussia, the present Frederick William, was crowned Emperor of Germany. France, however, after that war, having had enough of kings and emperors, adopted the republican form of government, so that now there are 3 republics in Europe, viz. France, Switzerland, and a little territory on the east coast of Italy, San Marino. So that almost all of Europe, all of Asia, and all of Africa, except Liberia, and the islands of Australia and the northern part of North America, except Alaska, are under the government of monarchs, while the 3 countries of Europe already mentioned, and our own country and Mexico, and the Central American states, and all South America except Brazil and some parts of the coast of South America under British rule, are republics. Footnote: one of our most distinguished citizens said some years ago that he believed the tendency of things was toward the English language, the Christian religion, and republican government for the human race. End footnote. Now let us come back to our own government and see what it is, and whether it is better than any form of monarchy, and if so, why. What is the Constitution of the United States? The first clause in it is the best answer I can give. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Then follow the articles and sections setting forth the principles on which it was proposed to build up a nation in this Western world. The 13 states each had its constitution and its laws, but this instrument was intended to serve as the foundation of the general government. Until these states had formed their constitutions, there was no republican government in the world except Switzerland and San Marino, and these lived only on the sufferance of their powerful monarchical neighbors. All South America was under Spanish rule, and Mexico was a monarchy. The great principle of a republic is that people have a right to choose their own rulers, and ought to do it. The divine right of hereditary monarchy we deny. It is often said that the English government is as free as ours, but it is not quite true, and will not be true, until every citizen is permitted to vote for his rulers. Whether so much liberty is perfectly safe for all people is well open to question, but it is a fact here. And if people would only behave themselves properly, there would be no danger whatever in it. And if there is danger here, it comes not from native-born citizens trained under our free institutions. The sun does not shine on a broader, fairer land than this, and under that divine providence, without whose gracious aid we could not have achieved and cannot maintain our Constitution, we have nothing whatever to fear for the present or to dread in the future but the evil men among us, the anarchists and socialists, the scum and offscouring of Europe, who, with no fear of God before their eyes, so far forget the high aims of this government and their own obligations to it, as to seek to overthrow its very foundations. The highest and best types of monarchical governments are in Europe, and it is with such that we seek comparison when we insist that ours is better. Monarchies are hereditary. They descend from father to the oldest son, and to the oldest son of the oldest son, where there are sons. England has rejoiced in 2 female sovereigns at least, Elizabeth and Victoria, the present sovereign. But they came to the throne because there was no son in either case to inherit. The heir apparent, whatever his character or want of character, must reign when the sovereign dies, because, as they say, he rules by divine right. We insist on electing our president for a term of years, and if we like him, we give him another term. If we do not like him, we drop him and try another. I wish the term of office of the president were longer, and that he could serve only one term. Perhaps it will come to that, and I think he would be a more independent, a better official under this condition. What is the difference between the Constitution and the laws? The Constitution is the great charter under which and within which the laws are made. No law that Congress may pass is worth the paper it is printed on if it is contrary to the Constitution. Such laws have been passed ignorantly and have died. A very simple illustration is at hand. The Constitution of this college is Mr. Girard's will. This is our charter. The laws which the directors make must be within the provisions of the will, or they will not stand. For instance, the will directs that none but orphans can be admitted here, and the courts have decided that a child without a father is an orphan. The directors, therefore, cannot admit the child who has a father living. The will says that only boys can be admitted. Therefore, no law that the directors can make will admit a girl. Nor can the directors make a law which will admit a colored boy, nor a boy under 6 nor over 10 years of age, nor a boy born anywhere except in certain states of our country, Pennsylvania, New York, and Louisiana. It would be unconstitutional. I think now you see the difference between the Constitution and the laws. Now, again, is our government better than a monarchy, and why? Because the men of the present time make it, and are not bound by the traditions of far-off times. There are improvements in the science of government, as in all other human inventions, as the centuries come and go. Man is progressive. He would not be worth caring for if he were not. If the present age has not produced a higher and better development in all essentials, it is our own fault. It is not because men were perfect in the past, or cannot be better in the present or in the future. Therefore, when our Constitution is believed not to meet the requirements of the present day, there is a way to amend it, although that way is so hedged up that it cannot possibly be altered without ample time for consideration. As a matter of fact, the Constitution has been altered or amended 15 times since its adoption, and it will be changed or amended as often as the needs of the people require it. We believe our form of government to be better than any monarchy because the people choose their own lawmakers. The Congress is composed of 2 houses or chambers. The members of the Senate, chosen by the legislatures of the states, 2 from each state, to serve for 6 years. The members of the House of Representatives, chosen by the citizens, who sit for only 2 years unless re-elected. The Senate is supposed to be the more conservative body, not easily moved by popular clamor, while the representatives, chosen directly and recently by the voters, are supposed to know the immediate wants of the people. The thought of 2 houses grew probably from the 2 houses of the British Parliament. We cannot have a hereditary legislature, like the House of Lords in the British Parliament, whose members sit, as the sovereign rules, by divine right, as they say, and with the same result in some instances, for the sovereign may be a mere figurehead, or only the nominal ruler, while the cabinet is the real government, and the House of Lords long ago sunk far below the House of Commons in real influence. There is no better reason for this than the fact that the people have nothing to do with the House of Lords and the sovereign, except to depose and scatter them when they choose to rise in their power and assert themselves. We can have no orders of nobility under our Constitution. There can be no privileged class. All men are equal under the law. I do not mean that all persons are equal in all respects. Divine providence has made us unequal. Some are endowed naturally with the highest mental and physical gifts and distinctions. Some are strong and others weak. This has always been so and always will be so. Some have inherited or acquired riches, while others have to labor diligently to make a bare living. Some have inherited their high culture and gentle manners and noble instincts, which in a general sense we sometimes call culture, and others have to acquire all this for themselves, and it is not very easy to get it. So there is no such thing as absolute equality, and cannot be. But before the law, in the enjoyment of our rights in the undisturbed possession of what we have, we are all equal, as we could not be under a monarchy. Here there is no legal bar to success. All places are open to all. There can be no law of primogeniture under our Constitution. By this law, which still prevails in England, the eldest son inherits the titles and estates of the father, while the younger sons and all the daughters must be provided for in other ways. Some of the sons are put in the church, in the army, or the navy, or in the professions, such as law and medicine. But it is very rare indeed that any son of a noble house is willing to engage in any kind of business or trade, for they are not so well thought of if they become tradesmen. There can be no state church, no establishment, under our Constitution. In England, the Episcopal Church, and in Scotland the Presbyterian Church, are established by law, and until within the last 17 years, the Church of England was by law established in Ireland, and is now established in Wales. And in other countries of Europe, the Roman Catholic Church and the Lutheran Church and the Greek Church are established by law. In countries where there is a national church, it derives more or less of its support from taxing the people, many of whom do not belong to it. But in this land there is no established church, and there never can be, let us hope and believe. Under our form of government, we need no standing army. We owe this partly to the fact that we are so isolated geographically that we do not need to keep an army. I heard the general of our army say a short time ago that the regular army of the United States is a fiction, only 25,000 men. You saw as many troops a few weeks ago in one day as are in all our army. The real army, he added, is composed of every able-bodied citizen, for all are ready to volunteer in the face of a common enemy. Our territory is immensely large already, and it will probably be larger. but will not again be enlarged as the result of war. When we look at the nations of Europe and see the immense numbers of men in their standing armies, we can't help thanking God that we are separated from them by the wide Atlantic, and that we have a republican government and no temptation to seek other territory, and are not likely to be attacked for any cause. In the armies of Great Britain, Germany, Russia, Austria, Italy, Turkey, are more than 10 millions of men withdrawn from the cultivation of the soil and from the pursuits of commerce and manufactures. In Italy alone, the standing army is said to be 750,000 men. The withdrawal of so many men from peaceful occupations makes it necessary to employ women to do work which in our country women are never asked to do. I have seen a woman drawing a boat on a canal, and a man sitting on the deck of that boat, smoking his pipe and steering the boat. I have seen a woman with a huge load of fresh hay upon her head, and a man walking by her side and carrying his scythe. I have seen women yoked with dogs to carts, carrying the loads that here would be put in a cart and drawn by a horse. I have seen women carrying the hod for masons on their heads, filled with stone and mortar. I have seen women carrying huge baskets of manure on their backs to the field, and young girls breaking stone on the highway. Did you ever hear such things here? See what a difference! The men in the army eat up the substance which the women produce from the soil. But nowhere else in the world is the dignity of labor recognized as here. They do not know the meaning of the words, for in most other countries it is considered undignified, if not ungenteel, to be engaged in labor of any kind. A man who is not able to live without work is hardly considered a gentleman. To work with the hands is degrading, is what ought to be done by common people only, and by people who are not fit to associate with gentlemen and ladies. It is not so in this country. Here a man who is well educated and well behaved, and upright and honorable in his dealings with men, who cultivates his mind by reading and observation, and is careful of the usages of good society, is fit company for anyone. He may rise to a place within the gift of his fellow citizens and adorn it. This is not so elsewhere. And think of a young girl, hardly out of her teens, with no special preparation for such a distinction, but educated and accomplished, becoming the wife of the President of the United States, and proving herself entirely worthy of that high position. Could any other country match this? Now, what is the effect of all this freedom of thought and action on the people? Well, it is not to be denied that there are some disadvantages. There is danger that we may overestimate the individual in his personal rights and not give due weight to the people as a community. There is danger of selfishness, especially among young people. There is not as much respect and reverence for age and for those above us and for the other sex as there ought to be. Young people are very rude at times, when they should always be polite to their superiors in age or position. At a little city in Bavaria, the boys coming out of school one day all lifted their hats to me, a stranger. That would be an astounding thing in a Philadelphia street. In riding in the neighborhood of the city here, if I speak civilly to a boy by the roadside, I am just as likely as not to get an impudent answer. But in spite of these defects, which we hope will never be seen in a Girard College boy, the true effect of training under our Republican institutions is to make men. There is a wider, freer, fuller development of what is in man than is known elsewhere. Man is much more likely to become self-reliant, self-dependent, vigorous, skillful, here, not knowing how high he may rise, and consciously or unconsciously preparing himself for anything to which he may be called. And for woman, too, where else does she meet the respect that belongs to her? Where else in the world do women find occupation in government offices, on school boards, at the head of charitable and educational institutions? With few exceptions, such as Girard College, Where are there in any other country such colleges as Vassar or Wellesley, and as the Women's Medical College, almost under the walls of our own? I have already kept you too long, but a few words and I am done. I am moved by the injunction of Mr. Girard in his will, not only to say these things, but by this grave consideration also. Every boy who hears me today, within 15 years if he lives, unless he is cut off by crime from the privilege, will be a voter. You will go to the polls to cast your votes for those who are to have the conduct of the government in all its parts. I want to make you feel, if I can, the high destiny that awaits you. You are distinctive in this respect. You are all American boys. This can be said of no other assembly as large as this in all the broad land. You have it in your power, and I want to help you to it, and God will, if you ask Him. You have it in your power to become American gentlemen, and I believe that an American gentleman is the very highest type of man. God give us men. A time like this demands strong minds, great hearts, true faith, and ready hands. Men whom the lust of office does not kill, men whom the spoils of office cannot buy, men who possess opinions and a will, men who have honor, men who will not lie, men who can stand before a demagogue and scorn his treacherous flatteries without winking, tall men, sun-crowned, who live above the fog in public duty and in private thinking. End of section 8. Read by John R. Moore, Albertville, Alabama, May 2023.